Hey friends, and welcome back to See Mindy Mom. And if you are new here, welcome. I'm Mindy, and today I want to share with you a really fun video. I'm gonna find out exactly how many baked goods I can get from this 5-pound bag of flour, so stay tuned. I was in Aldi a few weeks back picking up a few things, and I noticed just how cheap their flour was. Now I know that you can pick up cheap flour if you want to buy it in bulk, but honestly I don't really have a place in my house or in my pantry to store 20 pounds of flour. So seeing that a 5-pound bag of flour was only $1.15 at Aldi just really blew my mind. I mean, I thought the price at Walmart was pretty good. At my Walmart it's $1.74 for a 5-pound bag, but at $1.15 at Aldi they're basically undercutting the price at Walmart by almost 40%. So I thought it would be fun to take this 5-pound bag of flour that I got at Aldi for $1.15 and see just how much I could make with it. While I was in Aldi, I picked up a few other things. I got some milk, I got some eggs, I got some butter, and I got a 3-pack of active dry yeast. So with the flour, my total before tax came to just $6.29. And I'm gonna use those things along with my 5-pound bag of flour to make some baked goods for my family. Now, if you are in a pinch where budget is concerned, if you have this and you have this and you have salt and water, you can make a really easy 4-ingredient bread. If you have time to allow your bread to rise longer, you can actually use less yeast than a recipe calls for. Christine over at Fit Frugal Mom has a great video about that 4-ingredient bread where one of the ingredients is water, and I will leave that linked up here and in the description box. So I thought I would make some other things for my family as well and see just how far I can stretch this 5-pound bag of flour. So I've already shown you the things that I purchased with my $6 and some change from Aldi. I am gonna use just a few pantry staples. I'll pop up a picture right here of the stuff I'm gonna use, mainly just a little salt, a little sugar, maybe a little baking powder or baking soda. My guess is if you are watching this video about baked goods, you probably already have those things and maybe even some of the things that I already purchased. But let's jump into the video now and see what I came up with. I mean, is this something they had to actually put on this bag of flour? Like, what was the meeting at the, Aldi quality control whenever they were deciding to put this on the flour bag? Does anybody eat raw flour? What's wrong with people? All right, you guys, it is time to get cooking. And the first thing that I am doing is I am getting some bread proofing. I want to make 2 loaves of sandwich bread, and I'm gonna start those at different times in the day so that they can bake a couple of hours apart because I only have 1 bread pan to bake them in. So in my stand mixer thingy-madoodle here, I have 3 cups of my flour, see? And 1 teaspoon of salt, and I'm just gonna take a fork and kind of mix that together just to make sure that the salt is distributed evenly in the dry ingredients. And here I have my wet ingredients, and I've had them sitting on the counter now for about 5 minutes. This is 1 cup of milk, which I heated in the microwave to about 110 degrees. I use a thermometer to double check. I like it between 110 and 115. But if you don't have a thermometer, I feel like it's the temperature that my coffee is if I let it sit on the counter for about 10 minutes. So it's not hot. If your water or your liquids or your milk are too hot, you will kill your yeast and it won't rise properly. But if it's too cold, it won't activate the yeast, or it'll activate much slower. But it's like a little bit warmer than lukewarm, but not hot. So to my warm milk, I added 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 egg, and 1 teaspoon of yeast, and I just mixed that all together, made sure that the egg was beaten, and it's been sitting on the counter for about 5 minutes now, and you can see that that yeast is all bubbly, it's all activated in there now. I am using less yeast than a lot of bread recipes call for because you can actually use less yeast if you are willing to let it rise longer, and I have all day for this bread to rise, so I'm gonna use less yeast, and that can come in handy if we get into a situation like we were in last spring where there was a yeast shortage and you couldn't find yeast anywhere. It kind of helps me ration my yeast. I'm just going to pour this mixture into my flour, and then I'm gonna put it in my stand mixer, and I'm gonna let it knead until the dough starts to pull away just a little bit from the mixer. And I am using my kneading attachment here on my stand mixer. That usually takes about 1 to 2 minutes. And then I will add 2 tablespoons of softened butter and let it knead for another 1 to 2 minutes. And then I'll show you what it looks like when I turn it out onto the counter. Okay, so my dough is done mixing, and this is a very sticky dough. So I'm just going to generously use some flour here and I'm gonna just knead it until it comes together in a little ball. And the thing about bread dough is that it can be kind of finicky, and you might need more moisture one day, you might need more flour one day, depending on how humid it is where you live, depending on the temperature in your kitchen, it might rise differently. I mean, sometimes you just have to play around with it until you get it just right. So I'm gonna just knead it a few times, kind of form it into a ball, and then I'm going to drop it into a greased bowl like this. And I'm going to cover that with a clean tea towel, and I'm gonna put it in my oven to rise. Now my oven is not on, I just have the oven light on, and I'm gonna let this rise for anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. I wanna see it almost to the top of the bowl when it's done proofing the first time. I've played around with this recipe a little bit, and the amount of dough that I am making for my bread is going to be enough for this loaf pan I've been using. It's a 13-inch Pullman loaf pan, and I will leave this one that I got on Amazon linked in the description box below. You might have a bigger loaf pan. I know that they make a 16-inch Pullman loaf pan, or you might be using 2 smaller loaf pans, like an 8-inch or a 9-inch loaf pan, and make 2 loaves from it. If you were gonna do 2 loaves, you might want to bump the recipe up by adding another ½ cup of milk and 1 cup of flour so that you have enough dough to go across 2 smaller loaves. While my bread is proofing, I'm going to get busy on some other things, and right now I'm gonna make a double batch of pancakes for my family to put in the freezer. Normally I would use the recipe from this cookbook, which is sort of a staple in a lot of homes. It's been around for decades. But today I'm gonna try a different recipe. It's from spendwithpennies.com, and I will leave it linked in the description box below. I'm going to go ahead and make the pancakes and set them aside to cool. I am going to lay them out on a cookie sheet, separating the layers with parchment or with wax paper. I'm gonna pop those into the freezer for about an hour or so, and once they're frozen, I can actually take them off of the cookie sheet and put them into a Ziploc bag, which will make for much easier storage. And then my kids can pull them out of the freezer a few at a time and pop them into the microwave for 20 to 30 seconds, and they can have pancakes for breakfast for several mornings in the next coming weeks. So I know this looks like a lot, and that's because I am doing all of this in one day, because I'm sort of treating it like a prep, and I'm going to put a lot of this stuff in the freezer for my family to use over the course of the next few weeks. I mean, you can space it out over time. I am just choosing to do it all in one day so I can see how much I can get from this 5-pound sack of flour, and so that I can just have some things ready-made now for my family for the upcoming weeks. I am making some egg noodles now, some homemade egg noodles. And what I have here is 2 cups of flour plus a teaspoon of salt, and I kind of mix that up a little bit. I'm gonna make like a little well here in the middle, and I'm gonna crack 2 eggs. And I'm just gonna kind of use my hands to sort of incorporate that. I've mixed my dough up, and now I am just gonna roll these out. The last time I made egg noodles, I made them just a tad too thick, so I'm gonna try to roll this out as thin as I can. And then I just take a pizza cutter and I slice the noodles up, and I toss them with just a little bit of flour. From there, I'm just going to actually put them onto a cookie sheet, put them into the freezer, and then when they're frozen, I will take them out and put them into a baggie, just like I did with the pancakes, and we will have homemade noodles to have with a soup sometime in the next few weeks. Okay, so my bread has been proofing for about 4 hours now, and you can see that it has easily doubled in size. So I'm just going to roll that out onto a floured surface, and see how easily it came out of my bowl because I greased it. I'm gonna knead it for just a little bit here, maybe just a minute or 2, and I'm gonna start to kind of form it into sort of like a loaf shape. I'm gonna put that inside my loaf pan, and I'm gonna let it proof again. And I have greased this loaf pan generously, and I've also greased the lid. So I want this bread to rise again to about halfway to 3/4 of the way up this side of the pan. And then I will just slide the top on, and I will bake it until the bread is done. And in the meantime, I'm gonna get the other loaf going so that it can rise while this one is proofing a second time. So after 2 big loaves of sandwich bread, almost 3 dozen pancakes, and a batch of homemade egg noodles, I still have flour to use. So I'm going to whip up a batch of cinnamon sugar donut muffins. I've made something like this before. This recipe comes from thesaltymarshmallow.com. I will leave it linked in the description box below. And it's sort of your typical muffin recipe: flour, sugar, eggs, butter, milk. But after the muffins are done baking, you dip them in butter and roll them in cinnamon sugar again. And that's kind of what gives them that cinnamon sugar donut taste. And these will be great great for my kids to snack on or have as a special treat over the next couple of weeks. Case in point about bread being fickle. This is my second batch of dough for the sandwich bread that I'm making, and it rose twice as fast as the other batch. Even though I used the same ingredients in the same amounts, even though I proofed it in the same oven, I mean, who knows, maybe it was a little warmer in my kitchen by the time I got to this batch, but for whatever reason, it rose faster. So I'm gonna do the same thing with it that I did with the other one. I'm just gonna roll it out here onto the counter and then put it into my bread pan for the second rising and then let it bake up. And just to reiterate that bread is fickle, my second loaf you will see is slightly shorter than my first loaf. My first loaf came out perfect. It is like the perfect size. It looks like a loaf of sandwich bread. My second one fell while it was baking. Whenever I started it baking in my pan, the same pan that I baked that one at, it was at the exact same level that that one was at, but for whatever reason it fell. Maybe I bumped it while I was putting it in the oven, I don't know. But it will still taste really good and it will make excellent toast, so it will still get eaten. And I debated whether or not to show you guys this. I was like, oh, they don't want to see that. I'm gonna have to start all over, gonna bake another one. But you know what? I think it's important for you to see that it doesn't always go to plan. It doesn't always work out, but you know what? It will still taste the same and it will still toast the same. So it will still be delicious and we'll still eat it. Yummy. All right, you guys, I have made 2 loaves of sandwich bread, a dozen muffins, 2.5 dozen pancakes, and a batch of egg noodles, and I still have enough butter, milk, and flour from that 5-pound bag to make a batch of biscuits for my family to go along with one of our dinners for this week. So I think that's pretty good for 5 pounds of flour. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. I'm thinking about doing another video with 5 pounds of flour and making some different things and just maybe seeing what else I can come up with. And if you are not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you in the C Mini Mom family. Thanks so much for watching, and I will be sure to get back with you with another video very soon. Bye.